Hey guys, it's Cozy. While Season 2 of The War Within comes to an end, and we anticipate the return of Toes McGee, I decided to bring you the movie edition of our first Zero to Hero of this season in full length, because you absolutely loved those full-blown back-to-back episodes last season, and I'm a man of the people. The reason why we play this back, the hows, goals, and rules, you see in the first episode. So you can expect a bumpy ride, as I tried to tank my first dungeons in this season on a class that is considered somewhat of the worst for multiple reasons, at least if we talk about the overall population of it. And you can bet that molding, despair, and potentially some raging will be part of the journey. So buckle up, start the game, relax, and keep this trip on the second screen as background noise, because I know that's what I do with full-length movies. But most importantly, thank you for the crazy Season 2 and your support. And hey, how about we make this some absurd goal of, let's say 200 likes on this video. Would be crazy to end the season as strong as we started it. With that being said, enjoy. Hey guys, it's Kusi. Let me welcome you to the first episode of many, showcasing the most likely horrendous downfall of your boy playing a tank in the beginning of a new season with absolutely no idea about the class, dungeons, and the routes. In this Zero to Hero, The War Within Season 2 Brewmaster Edition. To clarify why Brewmaster is a spec of our choosing, I need to mention that it got chosen for me. You see, over on my livestream on Twitch, viewers can earn channel points. One of them, mentioned viewers, is Philima, dedicated WoW gamer, heal main, and full-blown monk degen. Whenever you want to have multiple classes on max level, Philima just wants to have every race as a monk on max level. With that being said, he spent 100k channel points to ensure I picked Brewmaster, and here we are. In preparation, I only leveled the character before 11.1, while not checking any guides, builds or changes, which makes this a completely naked experience, as they say. With all of that context out of the way, we will go over the rules of this journey, my goal, why Harry Maguire, and, because it's a freshly started season, the gearing process that got us ready to do Mythic Plus without even stepping foot into a Mythic Zero beforehand, just to ultimately learn the hard way that this season's beginning is a damn rocky one to say the least. So make sure to grab a drink, get comfy, like the video, and enjoy episode 1 of me fighting for my life on every damn pole. Seriously man, give me 2 seconds! Season 2 finally live. God, that was a hell of an annoying first week of the patch where nothing really mattered and Muppets tried to push their Mythic Plus rating in hope that it matters at all. Meanwhile, I used the time to start the grind on the griefing sensation that is
Harry Maguire!
Now for everyone not watching football at all, and when I say football, I mean football. Harry Maguire is an English defender who became an infamous meme for scoring own goals, making bad decisions, and ultimately losing the game for his team more than once. Hence why I chose his name. I want everybody to know that Brewmaster is not just a specialization, it's a lifestyle. Whenever this guy joins your party, expect the unexpected. Keys will be bricked, bad decisions will be made, and yet ultimately this is a journey to restore the glory of
Harry Maguire!
As we will learn from every mistake and improve, adapt, and then still drop dead because I have no idea what's up. Though as a German citizen, everything has rules, which brings me to the rules.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
What a shit segue. Anyways, since this is Zero to Hero, old school edition, we do this puck only. No premates, no parties, no help on stream, no friendless usage with the minor exception of a guild. A random guild that is. Not our community guild for obvious reasons. This little grey area exists because I'm a firm believer that MMOs are supposed to be played with each other. Though keep in mind, often I don't even join a guild, since this is just a maybe option for me. Another extra part of that rule is to only apply for other people's keys and to not play my own. Why? Because I want to cry myself to sleep, don't kink shame me. And even though this was 5 rules in one, the second actual rule is my Radar.io account is not connected to anything. No rating from previous seasons, even though I was almost 3.5k. Third rule revolves around gold, and since costs of crafting drastically decreased compared to the beginning of season 1, paired with the fact that right now I can only craft an item every 2 weeks, I will not give myself some gold to start with. All of the gold you see is made from leveling, questing, dailies, weeklies, delves. Also, Monk is a full-blown hybrid, so doing the call to arms for dungeons every now and then should be enough for the ride. An extra added fourth rule will be to leave every damn party that has a red paladin or a BM hunter in it, since so far they caused me the most emotional pain playing this season. Damn! Not an actual rule, but maybe it will be one. Last but not least, the goal.
That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
So let's talk about it. Usually this type of series ended with either Keystone Hero, which is 2500, or by having every key time to plus 10. But because they did nerf the dungeons in general and made it quote unquote easier to get there, I can hear you scream, at least 3k! And to you I say the following.
No.
The truth is, I like tanking in general. So if I'm still enjoying this whole run once I'm at 2500, I may shift the goal. But for now, we stick to KSH. Keep in mind, in the beginning of the season, it's not that easy to just grab multiple crafted items in the first week to quickly climb up the item level, so everything is slower. Which isn't slower though, which is a good segue for once, is the gearing process prior to Mythic Plus. I started as naked as you can be, item level 473, since this is what I had after I was done leveling, so naturally I needed some quick upgrades. The Siren Isle, the lazy excuse to provide new content during Season 1, even though haters would say this looks awfully a lot like the BFA content. Disregarding, and here you have two things that will help us big time. For one, we got this juicy ring that we can use for a long ass time, as it's upgradable to 658 just by doing a pretty fast quest chain. By doing that quest chain, we also unlock the currency called Flame Blessed Iron. This funny little currency can be traded for some quick 583 item level items, which paired with the ring, pushes us faster to 590 than my father pushed me out of his life.
Damn.
After that, I started to unlock a new area called Undermine, which is the hotspot for the current season, simply because it grants us access to world quests that potentially grant us 610 item level gear, as well as a world boss. Now keep in mind, right now is the week before the season starts, which means there are no such things as dungeons or LFR to grab gear from. So there are only two big items to farm this week. By doing world events, such as the theater, the light event in Hollowfall, the world quest event, or big weekly quests, we can obtain 2 veteran items. Once I was done with that, I waited for the first reset and did 4 of those events that provide a once per week crate in the end to get another 2 veteran items and, more importantly, restored coffer keys. Cause now we are cooking. You see, delves are a very good income of gear in the beginning of the season, as they will grant you champion item level guaranteed, which is 636 item level as long as you got restored coffer keys to open the chest with in the end. Some would say they are quite tricky to play on your own, and the recommended item level is honestly a lot higher than what it should be. But at this current time, I went out of my way and leveled up the delves again until tier 8.
For what? Why?
Tier 8 will provide me the best of all worlds when it comes to potential gear, so trust me on that one. Once I got there, I took my time completing them, as you only get a handful of lives to run through. Luckily, doing this as tank is quite simple, as long as you just manage to stay alive on your own. You just kite and let Bran do the dirty work. The reason to do this, like I mentioned, as long as you got coffer keys, you will have a guaranteed champion item waiting for you. Now I did mention a potential hero item, and that one comes into play once you loot a Delver's Bounty map. Once you got your hands on that thing, you can activate it to ensure another chest waiting for you after the next completed delve run. That contains a hero item level piece of gear, but only on +8 and above, which is 649, and this is insanely high to start with. Apparently they heavily increased the drop chance of those bounty maps, but limited them to once per week, so it should be rather quick to find one. And since I got mine on the first run, naturally, even though it was almost 3 AM, I went for another one, cause I was horny for that big upgrade. And I got the Funhouse Lens. On first sight, insane trinket, right? 90-second cooldown, almost 4k main stat, 8k off stat. Unfortunately, this trinket is a coin flip for me. Crit is the best stat to gain, while haste is the worst. Eye level is king for us tanks anyways, because we want as much agility as possible, so I won't even bother to complain about this. Before continuing the remaining 3 delves I was able to do, I took a quick sidestep to the Gobfather, which by the way is a hilarious name for the themed world boss, which received some major changes loot-wise. You see, before, world boss loot was just randomly sent out and either you got lucky or you don't. Apparently, now it's a bit different. The first character of your account will always receive an item from the world boss. The catch is that you can loot the entire pool of items, disregarding your armor type. But they are warbound, so you can use them for alts. Not the biggest fan of this change, since it will mean that you get items you can't use more often, but for playing alt characters this is a good change. Plus, since world boss items are a myth anyways, actually getting some for a change seems nice. As I mentioned though, this was only a detour, so we had 3 more delves to go for, and then just finished the entire gearing process off, I bought myself a veteran PvP weapon.
What?
You heard me, blood tokens is the keyword here. Those thingies are a currency you receive for open PvP, or at least originally. You also get them by doing world quests with the war mode enabled, 100 per piece. You can also get them from this funny quest, Sparks of War. You get 1 spark for each PvP kill you're part of, but because I'm not some PvP playing degen, I take a different route with this. You see, every world quest grants 10 of these sparks on top of the 100 blood tokens. Every rare boss grants 8 sparks and every repeatable loot box in that area also grants 5. Not only can you farm those without doing PvP, it's also more effective to do. Side note, if you're leveling in Alt right now, you can do these world quests before you're 80 and already stack up on the blood tokens. Granted, when I did it, it was quite bugged since many world quests didn't get me anything. But I'm sure that's just an issue with the zone, as it usually works like a charm. Regardless, after all of the above, we sit on an item level of 361. No Mythic Zero done, no Mythic Plus done, no crafted items, just weekly content that everyone can do solo. Granted, I did get quite lucky in the delves because I didn't get any duplicates. That's how insane the gearing is about currently. Oh yeah, I also did LFR afterwards, but I didn't get anything, so I didn't mention it. And while I show you a little bit of the warm-up dungeon I did to finally test out what tanking mythics will feel like, there's one thing I need you to understand. I got no idea what's going on. I understand the core mechanic that monk tanks have. Shuffle reduces the incoming damage and instead puts it as a dot on you, which then you can clean to eventually remove most of the ticking damage. Cool. However, there are a few things that I don't really get yet, which is my segue to tell all of you 3 Brewmaster mains watching my video, please do not dump all of the information of Brewmaster on me yet. Figuring out what's up is what's fun to me. So unless you have a very basic beginner guide on how to make life a bit easier and even more self-sustainable without a healer, I'm all ears. All the in-depth mechanics we can go over in a few episodes, if that's cool with you. This is the build I'm currently running, as I pretty much just copied it from a guide that some rank 1 player made without any regards for new brew enjoyers. By the way, I only did this one Mythic Zero simply because it has 2 pretty solid trinkets for brew, so I wanted to take my shot. But both shots missed. Would have been too good to be true. So our first actual key leads us to a dungeon I'm dreading specifically as tank, Theater of Pain. Now, for those of you that didn't play in Shadowlands, the name of the dungeon is not just some empty phrase to sound epic. It's a painful shitshow whenever you step into this because dying in here is just a matter of time. And of course, I got both Red and BM in this run. And another Hunter, cause why the hell not? Now, when I played this dungeon in Shadowlands, we usually skipped the first 3 mobs and took the big guy on the pick onto the boss. But because skipping is not puck-proof in any way, shape or form, we had to start slow. Luckily for me, in this dungeon, you can't do any big pulls since there's so much space in between packs, so I was able to focus on my stuff instead. But instead of big pulls, you got boss mechanics you need to play. First one is pretty straightforward. Don't stand in stuff and kick whenever you can. They made this triple boss a lot smoother to stack up, since the caster isn't perma-casting like it was before. However, back in the day you could have just killed one off, now you want to kill them at the same time as they get a stacking damage increase if you don't. Zav, the Shane Daddy, however, is the very same thing. Dodge all of his one-shots and make sure to nuke the banner ASAP, as this will stack a slow on you to oblivion, which then makes dodging even harder. And who would have thought that in my first key I already got some wank complaining about everything. Big Boy has an ego cause he timed some 11 keys last season. Wow. Though my go job is super straightforward, as you only need to dodge the chains and kill the ads, Cuck Darok is a different story. This one got proper rework. You got those floating balls, which I just stood in eventually because they didn't hurt me whatsoever. You got a debuff on 2 players that they need to go out with, and there's a mechanic that is similar to the final boss in the Talentbuild. Everybody gets marked and we should stack up as much as we can, so we can nuke the ads perfectly fine. I messed that up in the end, but I just put a paralysis on it, so that was fine until the boss was dead. On the final boss, we finally got some stuff to be mindful about. First of all, the very nasty tank slap in Reaping Sight. That's a half physical, half magic attack, so if you're a DK, use AMS on it, and if you're a warrior, you can spell reflect it. Furthermore, this fight is all about positioning. With Manifest Death, you want to stack up as much as possible without clipping each other with the rings, as everyone will spawn an ad on themselves that will immediately start to cast some nasty stuff. In the perfect world, everybody just kicks their own ad and then gather at the tank to stack them up for a quick nuking. Use Mastery or Silences. In the second phase, you're gonna have plenty of ghosts fighting in the area, while some of those bull pigs try to trample you. And even though some of your wheels like being stepped on, this is neither the time or the place for that.
Naughty, naughty.
All in all, this fight becomes hectic very quick, because with this amount of abilities, overlaps are bound to happen. So stay calm and just play for yourself, don't die, and you'll be fine. We timed the key, Druid got some shoulders he probably didn't need, I asked for them and I got kicked from the party like it's somehow my fault we didn't do chest this run.
Bye, have a great time.
But hey, first key timed, I was happy. If it continues like this, I'll be at KSH in no time. No. Dude! I'm the party, I'ma press wings instantly. It's always the damn Hunter. Hey guys, it's Kusi. Welcome back to episode 2 of pretending everything is fine while day drinking your problems away in this Zero to Hero Brewmaster edition. In the last episode we went over the rules, the almost stupid gearing before even doing a dungeon, and we started our journey in a key that we played perfectly just to get booted by our worst enemy, a BM hunter. But since there was so much context about the beginning of the character in the last episode, this one will be different. In need of some sort of experience in both Brewmaster tanking as well as dungeon routing, this one will be a full-blown dungeon edition. And with a slightly faded spoiler warning, I will tell you the Theater of Pain key from the last episode was by far the cleanest. So in case you wonder which routes are viable, what not to pull, and why I have this growing despise towards BM hunters and red paladins, you may want to stay put, as I become more and more defeated towards the end. But first, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, as we are on the road to 10k subscribers and you cheeky dog, are the difference maker. And let me know which dungeons you like and dislike so far while playing. I personally got positively surprised about Darkflame Cleft, and so far I'm not the biggest fan of the Motherlode. It's always the damn hunter! Alright, so after I had some mixed feelings about my confidence after both 2-chesting a top run and getting kicked instantly afterwards, I decided to continue my ways towards one of the newer dungeons that people are dreading so much. Now keep in mind that all of the dungeons in this episode are all prior to the fat-ass nerf that happened pretty quickly. Not that it will justify some dumbass post I did, I just wanted to let you guys know that some changes have been made since then. So Priory of the Sacred Flame is actually a dungeon I thought was hella cool when the expansion launched, because this finally gave me a feeling of the Scarlet Monastery back. No evil void spawns, no goblin gang war, no silly candle worshipping dumbasses, and no spider infested shitholes. Just some dudes, some dogs, dudes on dogs, some fat dudes, casting chicks, and really annoying casting chicks. All to ultimately conquer Prioress Merprey, aka the Holy One.
The Holy One!
But let's start from the beginning. Technically, what you want to do in the first pull is you want to drag those 4 mobs into at least one more pack and just use Lust. You will add another pet by default, so that's even better. And this is a fail-safe bloodlust to use because it will take you forever to get to the first boss. But, you know, well...
Pussy!
I was scared, okay? Leave me alone. Another thing to learn in this dungeon is which mobs are actually pullable. What I mean by that is, which of these dirty wieners will actually come to me, and which of them will just stand there and shoot your ass from 40 yards out. But whatever you do, don't pull too much. I thought it was a 5-hit play to play another pack with the mini-boss, and you can do that, but maybe not this pack. Now haters would say that you can just tank the mini-boss on the stairs to prevent the knockback, but I wanted to pull something else while the next mini-boss is approaching. And even though I knew that she will come, my reaction time was so borderline ass. But before you sit there and say, oh he's griefing a key, there's a reason why I joined the +2. You can't grief a key that can't be depleted. 13 deaths before the first boss. I've seen worse. We went to clear the left side cause that's what I remember doing before season 1. Apparently you don't want to do that anymore. But while I was trying to figure out why it takes so much damage here, I got slapped by the only ability you should avoid. Next on the list is the workshop in Mechagon, the home of all the midget transformers and the playable class of mecha gnomes that nobody ever actually saw in game. Now, luckily for me, for the majority this dungeon did not change. Unfortunately though, they changed the most chaotic fight and made it even more chaotic. The original version of Iron Man and his battlebot were usually quite tame. Now shit's all over the place. The important core mechanic here is to kill them somewhat at the same time, while also using those hammers at the side to knock down the platinum plating whenever it reaches max energy. Other than that, dodge the bombs. And while a dog is considered to be a man's best friend, he's certainly not the best friend of a healer. Boy does this puppy slap some damage onto the party. Technically it's super easy to fight this boss, but boy can DPS make it difficult. 3 important things to look out for. Dispel the tank. LOS the big venting flame cast and make sure you will not, and I repeat, not clip those metal boxes while being marked by charge. If you do, rip. Yet arguably the most difficult thing about this dungeon is the IQ check, or the noob filter as they say, and I will give you some advice. Whenever you get to the spot, don't greed. If this spot is between you and the destination, you gotta wait until it passes you. If you stay in the smoke, you're good to go. Just to fully mention every boss in here, on the third, which is exactly how I imagine an American garden, you need to focus the gun turrets ASAP, and after that, dodge the mines and kill the armored garden gnome. But actually, the turret is priority. Now the last boss is the reason why I'm not a fan of this dungeon. King Mechagon will wipe your parties more than once, and it's rough to see this boss at the end of the dungeon. While phase 1 is pretty stale and usually goes on for way too long, since people don't use the damage cooldowns, phase 2 is pretty clustered. You always have to be on the lookout for those little lightning thingies, as they keep moving every few seconds with one intent: to claim your ass. Paired with the big ass laser that targets random people, which you should never get hit by twice, this is a quite hectic fight for everybody that isn't used to it. Oh, and whenever Magneto Arm comes along, move away from it as far as you can while also dodging the stuff on the ground. The further away you are from the epicenter of the suck, which is ironically what they called your mother in college, the less damage you take. Another depleter. Shit's rough out here, man. But even though you could argue that I'm dogshit at the game, I'm certainly not a quitter, for the most part. So I stepped back into Priory to right the wrongs right. Learning from my mistakes as we arrived on the first boss without any casualties, which means I can talk to you about the upcoming 2 bosses.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Baron Brownpike,
That's gotta be racist. There's no way.
which sounds like a kinky sex thing, is actually quite a cool fight. While the rotating hammers, which also sounds like a sex thing, are quite straightforward, the sacrificial pyre is the big mechanic to play. With that, you will spawn a little light zone with floating balls around it, and each ball represents a stack that needs to be removed. You remove it by walking into the zone, and it will place a debuff onto you whenever you do. Recommended is that everybody just takes one, as the debuff stacks and hurts like a bitch real quick. Towards the end of the fight, you got 5 of those balls to soak. So if you need to take 2, you should use a defensive alongside it, otherwise you will most likely flop over. Oh yeah, and if you fail to do so, you get the holy pounding of a lifetime, which also sounds like a sex thing.
You teasing me, you naughty naughty.
On the final boss, however, the mechanics become super deep and complicated. A charging laser that will kill you if you stand in it, never seen that before. Stuff on the ground you want to avoid, never seen that before. And arguably the most evil mechanic called a blinding light. I wonder what happens there. I wonder if you should avoid facing the blinding light. Our mage wanted to make sure though, as he insisted on getting hit by every damn blind, pretty much every time except one. So I don't know if he will advise you to turn around, but I would. Be it as it may, let's go over the new dungeon that got shoved onto people for this season, full goblin themed Floodgate. Now at this point I only did the dungeon once during the Mythic Zero I tried as a warm-up last episode, so I got somewhat rough an idea of what's going on. However, not about the routes. So I YOLO'd one, but I simply remembered what I've seen before and hoped for the best. Though it's quite annoying to tank as a monk, since we have almost no option to properly gather all of these archer mobs that just refuse to move at all. But it's a +2 and they put their faith into me, so stress test it is. Only stressful for the healer though, since I neither held aggro or healed myself. Other than having an incredible chance to body pull, there are 2 different things in here that scare me the most. These 2. And the bosses, of course. New bosses are always scary as you need to figure out how they work and potentially how to cheese. For example, Big Mama starts with 4 adds that you kinda wanna stack around her as much as possible. Whenever all of them die, she goes into a chill mode and you can spank her like a little dirty goblin she is. Wait, what?
Stop it. Get some help.
But careful, one of the mecha drones will start to cast a nasty ticking AoE which you really want to kick. After she's done with her chill phase, she electrocutes the floor, which means you need to reposition. I'd recommend starting the fight either to the left or the right, not in the middle like this muppet ass tank. Oh, and don't be an idiot like me, use the parachute here. I didn't know that's a thing at all. On the second boss, which is just another proof that Blizzard is just horny to give us way more double boss fights in the future, shit hits the fan pretty quickly. The mechanic here is to disable all the bombs on the floor, and you got 2 ways of doing that. Either let the big dump guy charge through them, which he attempts 3 times, or you get close with them with this little debuff. When dispelled, it will blow up hot bombs in your area. Furthermore, we got Swamp Phase, which ironically is what they call your mother. This sucker's quite annoying as you have to constantly move around them at all times, while 4 people of the party are tethered together. This tether itself not only does mad damage over time, but also snaps you back together whenever you move too far apart. I tried to ensure some kind of hive mind by telling them to always aim for the left side of the frontal, but just because that mentioned frontal isn't enough, we got a lot more stuff to dodge and avoid together. As he rains down all the tears of the BM hunters and red mains watching this video, those hurt for no damn reason at all, so avoid them too. Now the final boss also has a lot going on, and everything revolves around even more tears in form of those puddles on the ground. The core idea here is to make sure you do not, I repeat, do not bring the water in any connection with the electric abilities happening. 2 players get targeted with a mean dot. Take it out, but do not clip the water. Tanks get a really annoying Tankbuster that will knock you through the area, and there will be some annoying little sparks to jump after the entire party. Now here's where you need as many clean puddles as possible. The only way to deal with those meat-seeking jumping sparks is to kite them into the water. Very important, you keep the area clean, as walking through electrified water will stun your ass and will pop the release spirit button faster than you can recall your Pikachu. Yet, even though I didn't get any of those 2 insane trinkets, I got a headpiece, which we will take. Now then, my least favorite key so far during the season, the Mother Load. And even though I know some of you consider themselves grade A Mother Loader, this is a different thing. The first challenge in here is to figure out a route that is fail-safe for the most part, and I think I cooked something up here. There are so many things you need to be mindful of, as you got nasty casts, big AoE channels, fat ass peacekeeper that try to test the limit of your own butthole, and jockey mobs that will run before they die with an attempt to jump into another peacekeeper. When I tell you there's a lot going on in here, I'm not over exaggerating. Besides all the nasty stuff, we got the first boss, in which Harry Maguire will shine as we kick some balls into the boss. Other than that mechanic, this boss is quite obvious. But the second one, okay, hear me out. You permanently got 2 adds running around and one will always be empowered after a short time. You, as the tank, can just taunt the empowered one to yourself, while the other one charges a random range player non-stop. The easiest way to deal with this is to put that into a permanent CC. Druid roots are really solid, but easily the best solution is a Warlock with Banish. Banish will also prevent all damage taken, which is insanely huge considering you got those YOLO Andes just nuking anything that moves. If you don't have any chances to perma CC, at least try to slow it down and just kite it around. It sucks, but it's doable. The important part is that the empowered ad dies before the big stomp. Otherwise, release spirit. Unfortunately, on Flux Flame, you completely are reliant on your DPS to properly clear the area. As a tank, you just need to make sure to find the biggest area of room in order to make this as pleasant as possible. Final boss is a lot different though. While the boss mostly is straightforward when talking about the Gatling gun, the rocket that needs to be dragged out, or the bussy bump during the intermission phase, one thing many didn't realize are the small helicopters to the side. They indicate where the area of effect damage will happen, and even though there's an untamed safe spot in this area that never any mechanic will hit, I don't trust in those things. Never. Unfortunately, even with my fail-safe route, we gathered 22 deaths due to one-shots and mispositioning, which means we didn't time this one by over a minute. But because these are only 5 out of 8 dungeons of our world tour to start this journey, you know shit's about to go down real bad. Hey guys, it's Gusi. Welcome back to episode 3 of I Wanna Be a Brewmaster, so freaking bad. Breaking stuff till healers will get mad. In this Zero to Hero Brewmaster Monk Edition. During the last edition, we figured out that low keys should technically be free, but sort of got cooked by reality, which showed us that the timer is not the issue, it's us.
I'll be damned.
Yet because all good things must come to an end, the suffering will ease today, even if it's just slightly, as we not only step up our key range by a big jump, we also get paired with some real ones that only know one way to play the game. Furthermore, we do have our first vault to open, which brings us a massive piece of loot and which will be the catalyst of some immense power spike coming our way. We also will have our first glimpse of the reworked bulk collecting affix from season 1, which got a change slogan from "you gotta catch them all" to "yo bro, if you touch my ball, I will touch yours."
Why are you gay?
But before we start this action-packed roller coaster, get it, cause roll, make sure to like the video so it potentially gets recommended to a Blizzard dev, showcasing that the spec is the issue, not me.
Wildlife!
And also subscribe if you don't want to miss any further match highlights of
Harry Maguire!
He's the best football player in the world.
Alright, so even though we are technically not done with our +2 world tour in order to gather information we need, I kinda showed you what's up. Yeah, but because we ooze out positivity in this series, since the copium is still strong within this one, we are stepping up our game in a pretty big way. First, Vault. We got 5 hero items waiting for us, so without any further ado... Oh yes! God bless the Delves, dude. Between the Turbo Drain 5000, which is ironically what I've been calling my ex ever since, the price putter of my dad, Miss you, Dad. 3 useless offset pieces with mid stats and the tier shoulder. This decision was just as easy as my very first starter in Pokemon Blue.
What the hell is even that?
Now, for it to make sense, we need a second item for a 2-set, and I already prepped something juicy here. Maxed upgraded legs, enchanted and looped up to be squeezed into the catalyst to grant us an insane power spike. Tanks all share a similar set bonus this season, and for Brewmaster, we do be proccing Fortified Brew randomly and we get 15% damage done for 8 seconds. Now, granted, I do feel like the tier sets feel heavily underwhelming compared to set pony in the past, but I reckon the tank sets are pretty good for muppets like me who don't play tank much often. Cause let's be honest, one of the biggest issues every healer in low keys has seen is that nobody is actively using defensive. At least now you got some passive procs that will do that for you. Not much, but I can see where they were going with this. Cause let's be honest, high tier gamers don't really need it. But before I give you some insane strat that I didn't know at all about the delves and the randomly provided map for a hero item, I wanna quickly say something for transparency. I'm reading all of your comments, trust me, all of them. And there are some mad tips that I've already applied, such as weak auras to track things, potential routings or talent updates. Yet, for the sake of providing a constant flow of the upload, I'm obviously slightly ahead when it comes to recording the footage. So don't be surprised if you don't see those things happening right away, but I am very much trying to improve my Brewmaster experience, and thank you all for being patient with me. Now, delves. Apparently there is this wonky little item you can buy from the delve currency vendor to force spawn this season's mini-boss, and that sucker will always grant a map, it seems. If you are in a +8 delve, you can just instantly use that map and receive your loot in the end. That's crazy. Just make sure you're at the respawn point before using it, otherwise it won't let you. Alright, now with all of that stuff out of the way, let's go over a dungeon I didn't show you yet. Dark Flame Cleft. Heavily criticized for the annoying escort kind of mission in the end, I was kinda hyped for this, as I didn't dislike it at all during the preseason. And yet I suffered through the beginning part so much that this time I wanted to play it smart. As smart as I can at least. Now when tanking, the hardest thing to do here is to ensure that nothing will add another trash pack by accident. Because they are a bitch to control. And while you can't control your average BM hunter, you can control the mobs in here. You see this big ass circle that will knock you away? It will also knock away all smaller mobs, and if they're aimed towards another pack, it's a party. And since the timer on this dungeon is quite generous, even with the nerfs to it, which aren't applied on this footage yet, I say take your time on the first part till the first boss. If you don't feel too confident, pull them slowly. I know DPS will maul at you, but this is by far the most annoying part of the dungeon. Now let's talk about the new version of Salatat's bargain affix called Oblivion. It got reworked to the point of everybody getting a rotating testicle around you, which can only be touched by someone else to trigger the bonus stat. And even though this sounds like some kinky thing Blizzard stock owners play whenever their new expansion comes out, it's actually an in-game tech. Now so far I didn't find a proper way of doing this, since everybody just doesn't move and then panics like crazy at the end, but running through them is the only way to get this over with, so do that. Just do that. Yet, because the first boss is like a boss you could put into a classic dungeon when it comes to its mechanics, the second boss is actually hella fun to play. BlazeCon, is that how you pronounce it? Will play with itself, pause, with its own mechanic is what I meant.
Naughty, naughty.
It will blow off all the candles, spark a fire under 3 players that have to reignite those candles as you need the lighted area to dodge the one-shots, and then it will target 3 players again with the wind to turn the lights off as you need the dark area to dodge the next ability. Not gonna lie, just because those mechanics play off of each other, this feels like a light version of a raid boss. But let's step away from the Queef Queen and meet up with the Candle King. While this boss is again straightforward, it's really hard to catch up once you fall behind in here. So let me give you this idea. Whenever you're targeted by the axe throw, or whatever that is, choose the Vex figure that is standing by itself. There's no need to target out statues that are stacked, because you can easily get rid of 2 or 3 of them with the Dark Flame debuff whenever it goes off. Oh yeah, and kick. Arguably the most important mechanic, kick, kick, and kick. But before I got to the final boss and how we maybe play it, I give you the raw footage during the stream and let's see what the Kusler has prepared for us. I'm calling this the hidden tech. And now guys, hidden secret tech. I simply wanted to move the candle a bit more towards the middle, so the path from the outside candles is shorter. Apparently, I forgot to press something while doing so.
You're joking.
If anything, it's a hidden tech to troll your DPS, which is just fair after everything they put me through so far. Regardless, this boss has a lot going on. The core idea is to use those outside candles to relight the main candle, similar to the card escort you had to do to get here. Important to note is, make sure the abilities do not hit the candle, otherwise it will be shred to pieces. As soon as it goes to 0, we all get feared. Me as a tank, I usually try to use my stuff to grab the light whenever it does the big AoE, as that one will almost burn the entire candle. So you want to have something prepped in advance. And would you look at that, we went from worst run ever to nice tanking. You love to see it.
No.
I was pretty stoked to finally have a 6 done, because this now means I can start farming hero items non-stop. So in order to continue to farmage, we gotta learn how to enjoy the places we dislike.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
Motherload. Or as we say in German, Riesenflöz.
That's gotta be racist. There's no way.
I don't even know what that is or which idiot approved of that translation, but you, sir, you got issues. Disregarding, in here we got one duty and one duty alone. Pulling, failsafe. I guess you can't trust anyone to get the job done, unless you're Harold J. McGuire. Not the actual name, but this one sounds better. We are clutching this shit like Harry Prime, and there is no way that I'm... Just kidding, I didn't die this run, but I felt like I needed it as a comedic element.
You're a liar. You're a liar.
Clean run, +2, double warrior new meta? So far, this went surprisingly clean, but let me talk to you about this fancy new Weakaura I obtained a few runs ago. This little tracker will show me the amount of stacks I got before using my Celestial Brew, as each stack increases the amount of the shield. Green stagger clearing will give you 1, the yellow will grant you 2, red gives 3. Whenever you reach 6, you hear this sound. There's not really a good way to track this by default, or at least I didn't find a way yet, so this Weakaura is absolutely mandatory and necessary. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I've gotten some more Weakauras and did some talent adjustments since reading your guys' suggestions, but they aren't included in the footage yet. But coming back to the dungeon, the damage we got could be a mad problem. I also got so many questions. What the hunter doing?
I don't know, Jeff.
And why didn't we res?
I don't know, Jeff.
Without even thinking about the negatives, I tried to keep my head in the game, and there's nothing better than the second boss of this dungeon to use your head on. At least for that one ability. Chaotic Corruption will be applied to one party member, and whenever it runs out, you spread it to the closest target. The closest. You kinda wanna pass that through the party like it's a doobie from Snoop Dogg, making sure that the same person won't hit it twice, as it claps some mad cheeks. Now, after tanking this dungeon a couple of times, I gotta say Rookery is a really enjoyable dungeon. It's fast paced, you got nice pulls, bosses are quite fun, and yet the last boss seems a bit wonky to play with pucks. I think the main issue here is that the players refuse to accept that the hitbox of this boss is massive. So far, I've also seen a new way of playing this boss whenever I got here, so I'm quite curious to figure out the proper or meta way of playing this in the future. You pretty much just want to make sure that everybody is in range of the healer, so you won't drop dead for no reason. Other than that, the only important mechanic is to not drop down into the water once the boss spawns.
Whee!
Oh, the second most important thing is to use the Storm Rider's charge, which is this circle here, to destroy those pillars on the floor. Each side around this boss will always have one of those pillars and everybody but the tank will be marked, so you got plenty of people to do that. If you fail to do so, a big Ed will spawn, and that's a GG go next angle all of a sudden. Besides that, don't jump down. Also a GG go next angle. We took it down on the second attempt, but I was actually surprised we were able to almost time this, even with our overall DPS like that. Then it was time for this week's event called the Time Walking. During this event, you either complete 5 Time Walking dungeons or kill 5 bosses in their respective raids for a normal item from the current raid. But because it's Pandaria, no raid is open, so dungeon it is. But because I didn't record those, we will jump right ahead to the reward I've gotten. And trigger warning, some of you gonna be mad about this one.
Are you kidding me?
This thing is probably top 3 trinkets for every DPS. And probably even for tanks if you're considering just DPS itself. But only for raids. The stacks aren't fast during combat, and once you leave combat, you lose a stack every 2 seconds. Really rough to maintain during dungeons, unless you can just chain pull non-stop. How do I know? I tested. Because I went into a workshop key that was about to be real special. They guaranteed me any loot but shoulders, which was a perfect fit for me because remember, we already got hero shoulders as a tier set. Another call out before the dungeon start was pull all. And boy, was I ready for that.
Bruh.
man. Exploding Keg and Ring of Peace are on the same shortcut, I just had alt pressed for some reason, alright? Give me a break. Though this healer was ready for everything. And so was I. Probably the first time I had so much consistent damage coming in that my self-heal actually was impactful. I love it. But what can I tell you guys, this run was so fun. Just pulled whatever, even overpulling a lot just for the fun of it, and then still 3-chesting this entire thing for us to receive some hero hands for potential upcoming set conversion. Wasn't even mad that I got loot promised, which I didn't receive even though the druid looted the headpiece. But hey, whatever, who's paying attention to those kind of things, am I right?
Why you have to be mad?
Man, I wish I finally get some good items. Hey guys, it's Kusi. Welcome back to episode 4 of losing aggro on pull cause I'm an idiot. In this Zero to Hero Brewmaster Monk Edition. In the last episode we finally started to play some dungeons rather clean while buffing up our gear with a 2 set and an insane trinket that is technically quite strong, yet I called it mid for Mythic Plus.
You idiot.
Furthermore, we improved enough to be praised after a run instead of flamed, and we managed to do an incredible big pull just to ruin it with a good old fat finger angle.
Bruh.
But today, oh boy. Alrighty, let me give you a quick walkthrough of what happens in this episode. We're going to start the Gilded Crest farm, craft ourselves not 1 but 2 big booty items, and then ultimately attempting our first +10 in this series in a weekly no lever situation that nobody would have predicted. Also for the very first time in history of Zero to Hero, not only on this channel but ever, I think, we got not 1 but 2 vaults to open. You heard me. Arguably the worst vault I've ever had on a character too, so make sure to like the episode and subscribe if you haven't yet, since it's for free and you won't miss another upload in the future. And because I love you. Alrighty, while I try to figure out how to get that dumbest song out of my head, let me show you what we've gotten from our second vault of the season, or the first vault of this video. Now I was considering to potentially grab the relic trinket from Delves, as I've read somewhere that it got buffed in the past, but it turns out it's still ass. So while there was a hero weapon that I could have potentially taken, I eventually decided to go for the Verse Mastery ring.
For what? Why?
The current weapons I had were quite good, and since I wouldn't have upgraded the 2-hand anyways, that one was out of the question. All in all, no banger items anyway, so we move. Yet for the sake of the length of the series, I won't show you all the dungeons I've been doing, as most of them are just me being a tight ass trying to get reps in and figuring out some pulls. And to be honest here, I don't really want to purposely farm content, but be assured, failure is part of improving.
Bye, have a great time.
Now then, for warm-up purposes, we go ahead and start off with the Floodgate. This is one of the keys I'm dreading to do in higher level keys, cause the boss's Tankbuster here scare me a little bit. Another thing I'm not completely comfortable with is the route. I did manage to make the first pull a bit smoother, even though DPS will hate me for not pulling big, but I don't care. I can't gather a big pull onto the first shredder cause I don't got grips. So I gotta make it work. This is the route I've come to like. Surely some can be improved, but I like to keep it rather simple and fail-safe when it comes to accidentally body pulling. The mentioned scary part for me in the potential +10 key is the third boss. Swamp Face Sludge Claws beat the brakes off of your average tank. And you can ask my ex-girl, I'm below average in every sense of the word.
Stop the cap.
Yet we do got some more dungeons to cover, so I'm just gonna leave you with the insane play of mine towards the end. I tried to get into a place where the boss's knockback won't knock me off, but I was too late. Got electrocuted and then stunned. And then dead. And yet it was worth it, because when I opened the loot box, nothing. One of these days I get a trinket, man. One of these days. But before we are going for some proper keys, I'd like to mention the achievement of Keystone Master on a rookie run, even if barely but still 2k rating, which is not really impressive, but it does grant me another catalyst charge. Which brings me to this. Forset. Now the Forset of Brew is not really that impressive, but I think none of the tank tier sets is. It pretty much just grants us some flat damage to Blackout Kick and a quicker use of any form of Blackout combo. Not insane, but Blackout Kick can hit hard now too, so we like that. Apparently it's recommended to play Master of Harmony after obtaining the set, but I stay with Shadowpan for now cause I kinda like it. Now while I keep our first +9 key in the background, let me talk to you about the new weak aura I got, which annoys me so much to even have gotten. This weak aura pretty much does this, but way more visible. Having proper information about the amount of damage staggered, also with the percentage of your own HP, is so helpful. I don't like that this staggering bar is not easy to spot with the baseline UI, as it seems rather important. Also new this episode is the affix Salad Thoughts Bargain Voidbound. Now, last season this was by far the best affix you could get, easy to deal with and an insane reward in 20% versatility, which is 20% flat damage and healing, alongside some extra cooldown reduction, which is fantastic for Mythic Plus. This affix got slightly changed though, and without getting into too much detail, it's a lot more important to actually focus it down now this season. The cast time of the spell got significantly reduced and now applies a debuff that is at a maximum of 50% damage done and 100% reduced damage taken to enemies when finished. However, the amount of buff value will go down depending on her HP whenever she manages to cast it through. Fortunately, we do have Touch of Death. Now, I would rather use it to reset staggering, but it takes about half of the HP of the affix, so I probably should use it for the affix this week. Now, the reason why I jumped so seemingly easy towards +9 keys right away is because this week is Tyrannical. And for those that don't know, at +7 or higher, either Fortified or Tyrannical will be present during keys. While Fortified heavily increases the amount of damage of trash mobs, as well as the HP with a 20% modifier, Tyrannical pretty much does the same for bosses only. And since bosses usually are easier to deal with as a tank, besides that Tankbuster of Swamp Phase, I wasn't too starstruck getting into these key levels. It also really helps that Theater of Pain is quite easy on tanks, besides the final boss, so I was happy to use this as a big stepping stone for more rating and more crests. During the first encounter, I really advise you to stack up with the party and then slowly move together during Narcissus? Poison spores, okay?
Stop stuttering.
Those puddles stay for a few minutes, so you want to get them neatly put to the side, otherwise it can get quite messy. Other than that, focus either Pastor Run, as he's the one doing that very mechanic, or Desia if you want to be a nice guy to the tank, as that thing applies the Mortar Strike for some insane reduced healing. Luckily a monk, we can potentially dodge that, no problem. Other than that, this dungeon got some quite heavy nerfs or hotfixes depending on who you're asking, so we're gonna go over a few of those in the next video as they were not live yet while recording this footage. With that being said, quick 2 chest, no loot, and I rerolled my key because of YOLO, but I won't play it anyways. And still, not over 1 mil DPS. It's the small things in life that matter to me. Disregarding, it was time for some crafted upgrades. And for me, there was only one solution: the belt. What belt? Can I hear you ask? The belt.
Are you stupid or something?
Adrenal Surge Clasp is the wet dream of every ladder tank, as the proc it gives is actually insane. 3150 main stat every now and then, which will only get doubled whenever we get our next item with the embellishment buff. This thing is so good. And just as a bonus, it got biz stats by default, since you can't change the stats on those specific items. Lovely. Now then, with the positive mindset of a drunk fox tank, almost 649 item level and a belt that has the same snap to it as my stepdad's, I was ready to not only conquer the 1 mil overall DPS ceiling, but also a dungeon that just seems to fail every time during my runs for whatever reason. For context, currently I am so flippin' cursed when it comes to Mechagon. The runs always go silky smooth. I'm talking buttery looped and massaged with the finest body lotion you can find.
Try to relax your anus.
Anyways, they usually went pretty good up until the final boss. So let's pray for the best here. And even though this went quite nice, our druid was already setting the tone of gathering some deaths. But look man, I would have loved to show you some funny fails and all, but boy, this was a solid recording session up until now. Yes, we didn't time it with a big amount of time left or even 2 chesting, but it was still a rather clean run all in all. We were just a bit slow, that's all. And yet, before we continue, we will quickly send an 07 for all the dungeons that didn't make it in this episode. 9 Cleft, 9 Motherload, 9 Brew, 8 Rookery. As those are important to note, since we gathered enough quests to craft ourselves a second item, and boy did that spark a conversation. Naturally, because of our agility granting strap-on, we need another item to double the effect of this Nerubian embellishment. And so I went with a chest piece.
Okay.
Hear me out. At this point, I was still rocking an Adventurer maxed out 632 item level piece, so this thing is 43 item level difference, with solid stats to top it off. I know that chest ain't the play for the most part, but I do have Foresight and I needed quick and impactful upgrades, because now we attempt our first plus 10. Now, I am still a bit scared to potentially mess it up, and I tell you why. I played this week with Tyrannical, so bosses won't worry me at all, but the 20% more damage from trash is something I can't really visualize on my damage taken. But I managed to get into a Dark Flame Cleft, so we can go slowly but surely, as the timer allows it, right? Alright? Ah shit. Yet let's start from the beginning, and don't mind those muppets in the chat claiming that they were in the party, they are not. This started with a meme from 2 viewers which I have both on my friend list, so I would have seen that they are in the party. And all of a sudden, everyone was in the party, right? Disregarding, the pulling slowly part was about to be ended quicker than my career as a wholesome streamer. The difference? Not because of me. You see, in this specific pull, I'd like to backtrack the mobs as they get knocked back by the big circle from the juiced up kobold. And while I clutched that on pull right away, before the next storm, there was some random ass in-cap totem appearing, ensuring a most unpleasant extra pull. Now we had 2 storms to worry about, so naturally I was stressed out a lot. And then this thing, another pack. And the ones from above. What an insane chain reaction from one spell used wrong. This is crazy. To say I was quite mad at this being my first +10 experience is an understatement. The healer was insane though. Even with dying to all the group damage, he managed to end up on 1.7 mil HPS. He's the MVP, man. He's the absolute MVP. Now, one thing I learned from playing this dungeon more than once is you absolutely need to make sure you stack the boss with the exploding minecart. Otherwise, DPS will have a really hard time to change targets and play the mechanics. At least I was chill now, as this is by far the most annoying part of this dungeon, and from now on I can just pull slowly. Oh hell nah. Used all my mobility to get ahead, should have kept it for the pull itself as I had some really mad issues gathering the packs. I should have never listened to the guy with way more experience than me. Granted, besides having messy pulls that took way too long to gather, I at least didn't feel useless. Yes, okay, on bosses my HPS is so bad I need a carry. But I just stayed on it to spam blackout kick into tiger palm for the most damage. Just make sure as a tank you will never leave the melee range, as this thing will clap the entire party if you do. And I can tell you, I figured this out the hard way, not because I read the spells on the journal. Now another thing I've been told but never was able to actually get done, apparently on the Candle King you want to stack up non-stop. So the little wax figures are spawning more closely. Seems like it works, but we can agree that people will split and everything will go to shit real quick. Speaking of going to shit, 3 out of 4 kicks were used on the first fear, so only the DK had 1 left. You had one job, man. And this is where a gamer separates from the casual. The shaman instantly adapted. He would just never use kick unless he saw most of us had cooldown on it. I also started to instantly kick the cast, so the shaman knew he potentially has to take the next one. Communication without words, that's my kind of relationship.
Stop it. Get some help.
And because I didn't actually mention this in the last episode, besides putting it in per text on screen, I'm going to mention this one real quick. Whenever you get the debuff with the big circle, you want to go out and grab a candle. Apparently that reduces the damage you take from the effect itself, which I honestly couldn't find in a dungeon journal to approve, yet you need to get out of the group anyway, so it's a good time to grab the new candle regardless. We eventually legit got through this with that one death from the beginning to time our first +10 of the season. I appreciate the healer on this one. I mean, the damage was nice, but that pull in the beginning was wild. And yet, as I promised, the second vault. Because now we got a mid item waiting for us. And after having a really annoying wank of a vault in the beginning that didn't give me anything decent, surely this one will be better.
No?
I got hero tier chest, which I don't need because I crafted myself one. Unlucky. I got hero hands, which I don't need because I got some. Unlucky. I got a crit haste ring, which I don't need because I got a hero ring from the last vault. Unlucky. And I got a haste mastery ring that is probably the worst thing that could ever happen to me on myth. Unlucky. So our third vault of the series, coins it is. At least they updated the name of this item. Now it perfectly reflects the feeling of anybody getting it. Hey guys, it's Kusi. Let me welcome you to episode 5 of trying Master of Harmony just to instantly go back to Shadowpan because it just feels a lot better in this 0 to Hero Brewmaster Monk Edition. In the last episode we finally attempted our first +10 key, which went surprisingly well, considering we had some insane mispull at the very start, gotten ourselves some mad upgrades in form of crafted items as well as forset, and we opened not 1 but 2 vaults that gave us nothing but sadness. But today will be different.
Really?
Today we are going to attempt only +10 keys and prove to everybody out there that the majority of keys will be bricked due to tanks doing weird stuff. Not me. No spoiler or anything. Furthermore, we do have yet another vault to open, which will be borderline insane compared to what we got so far. Which honestly doesn't mean anything, because again, the last 2 were quite mid. So without any further ado, grab a drink, get comfy and enjoy the portal hunt of Harold J. Weakaura. Not the actual name, but I like it more. Oh right, and like and subscribe, you handsome devil. Alright, so let me remind everybody that the goal of this series is not 2500 rating, but having all dungeons timed on that plus 10 key level. With that being said, after timing the Darkflame Cleft last episode, that means we are 1 out of 8 dungeons deep and also means the easiest one is out of the way. Also before we start, this is the final build I'm currently running and the one I enjoyed the most thus far. The only optional thing is the reduced cooldown to Weapons of Order that also gives us some initial pew pew, which hopefully makes getting threat early on a bit easier. Now then, 656 item level, which is more than enough for this expedition, 4 set and a nose for trouble. Okay. I wanted to ensure the cursed one is out of the way first, which means Mechagon. And not only did I not use the wonky Ring of Peace this time, we also didn't have any sort of casualties on both the first and the second boss, which might be a world first in my book. But of course, somebody dropped while I was trying to gather those 3 mobs that spawned far away from each other. And then we had another 5 deaths to the short-out mechanic, as our healer died first on it. But hey, that's okay, I'm all for joining plus 10 keys to learn mechanics, am I right? Yet we didn't stop there, because there is this really insane mechanic on the third boss, where he will indicate 3 lasers a few seconds in advance before actually releasing them. And yeah, you can't do anything against that now, can you? Fortunately, we can reset, but of course, we had this one dude that needed to release, and so we legit have to stay another minute for him to come back.
I'm so sad, man.
But yeah, no stress, all fun and games. At least no one dying to the laser this time. Oh well. Hey, did you know in order to not get packed up by the shortout, you can just use those funny looking turtle shell shields to take reduced damage?
You're joking.
I know that. You know why I know that? Cause I pay attention. He did not. Not only did he not use the free damage reduction, he also used his own when he was about to die. I swear, if we mess up the rogue stealth, I'ma out the 4 out of this bitch so fast and reinstall Leak, as I really need something that isn't as mentally draining. Lucky you.
Yeah, boy.
What's not lucky is the insane amount of mess ups I had on the final boss. We got 3 minutes for the second phase, including a lust, so as long as we don't die...
Why are you there?
We are so cooked, man.
Round 2. Fight.
Alright, rest. No more deaths and we are... Dude, what is happening, man? This was incredibly wild. Don't get me wrong, it's not the fact that we had 15 deaths. It's the way that we got them. It's because nobody paid attention, and if you ever play this boss, don't stand in the back of the room. Never. How is anyone in melee range supposed to know where you are if you decide to not even be in the same zip code? Anyways, happy this is out of the way for that very reason. 2 out of 8. Let's go over the other more annoying one. Motherload. Now, I know there are some fancy routes that allow you to skip 2 out of 3 Peacekeeper, and those make total sense. But this would require me to trust, and to say my trust issues are boiling right now is an understatement. So we muscle our way through this the old-fashioned way. Surprisingly, this went quite well, until it didn't. Maybe this is a me problem, but I don't get why people just can't wait for the tank to gather 2 packs and return.
I don't know, Jeff.
I went to pull them, but obviously I have to get close to them to gain some initial threat. And they all followed, so we had too many ground effects, and then of course somebody poly pulled the side pack. And that all because I had to turn back to get threat again, because they couldn't wait. I think so far I've only seen it once or twice where tanks didn't pull back, so there's no way that they didn't see this one coming. But again, maybe my fault. I could have pinged it, I guess. Quick reminder, we killed the first boss with 0 deaths, and on the first pull after we got 10. Damn! That is wild. Another 4 deaths, cause why would you dodge bombs on the ground? And we arrived at the second boss. A good moment to quickly mention this week's affix. We got the funny dispelling mechanic in Salathurst's bargain, Devour. With that, every party member will get a debuff that can A, be healed through, or, the better one, B, dispelled. Now, when I said dispelled, I'm not just talking about the ones that remove magic effects from the healer. This debuff is considered everything. So decurse, poison removal, disease, you name it. Feint death with the right talents, as well as the dwarven ratios also work totally fine in case you ever need those. Very important, you got at least 2 people dispelling, if not even 3 in your party during this week. as this is absolutely not a healer affix. Every DPS should be keen of dispelling this, cause if you don't, everything you're in combat with might receive 20% less damage reduction per stack. So it will tank you overall, just saying. Back to the dungeon itself, I don't really know what happened here. I mean, okay. This has to be trolling at this point, but because we had 4 minutes on the clock, I was quite chill. After all, this boss doesn't really do anything, unless you run into it. What a weird ending, man, holy moly. But at least 3 out of 8 done, and another one of the risky keys in the bag. I could already tell the toxicity of your average punk take seeping through me at this point. So let's go to a more fun one. As big pulls without any body pulling potential is what you expect in the Cinder Brew meadery. Now granted, I was a bit worried, because big pulls also mean big nut kicks, or something like that.
What?
Fat healing though. But in a total 180 from the dungeon before, this one went without any kinky surprises from the party, and almost no casualties, besides that 1 or 2 times where somebody ripped aggro. Yet what annoyed me slightly was that even though we played this quite clean, even skipped the pack to not overcap percentage too much, we still barely timed this one. This was the first +10 brewery for all of our characters as well. That's a rare sight, isn't it? Cool stuff. 4 down, 4 to go. And in a quite poetic coincidence, our 5th attempt for a +10 key will be the 5 boss dungeon, with 5 different classes, and about 5 combustion is ready notifications per minute.
Combustion is up.
Yes, Rihanna, I got it, shut up. Now I did one specific mistake in this dungeon, believing. I pulled the wrong extra pack to compensate for the skip in the beginning. Don't ever pull the double bone spikers. They one-shot you with every cast it goes through. Do as I say, not as I do. We also went to the double dark speakers cause we had 2 decursors, which besides a working set of eyes, is all you need to play this pack. And this is my first as well as honest reaction to seeing that they added actual lines for the tornadoes. Oh, look at this! They also did this frontal now. Blizzard Entertainment Gaming.
Combustion ready in 9.9 seconds.
Yes, Rihanna, calm down. This run also went quite nice overall. Besides the tank choosing some dumbest route that made us miss 0.74%. But I know why. I missed that bad boy. 6 minutes for the final boss. What can go wrong? Oh lord.
Oh no! No, 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 no.
Eventually we were down to 3 players after our healer decided that it's our time to shine, and the boss giving Riri the Chris Brown treatment. But not a problem for your boy. Monk is known to keep itself alive at all times. I totally wasn't sweating at all.
Combustion is up.
How can combustion even be on cooldown? It didn't seem like you used it. Just memeing, of course. Obviously for his gear the damage was almost disrespectful, but I talked about it a little bit. He didn't die to super cheat, use kicks, and didn't accidentally pull or add anything. So I prefer a player like this over anyone that does mad damage but dies 30 seconds into the pull. He will eventually understand how to deal damage, and then he's gonna be poppin'. Be that as it may, next up is the rookery, in which I learned that you can dodge the big shallow blast of the final boss as a tank. Yeah, like that.
I'll be damned.
Either use some sort of movement like roll or just stand far enough away and just sidestep it. Crazy how someone teaches me this hidden mechanic that late into the series. Yet 6 out of 8, which leaves us with the 2 dungeons I am worried about the most. Floodgate and Priory. I am worried for both, but for different reasons. While I'm quite positive about my route in Floodgate and I'm more scared about the boss's Tankbusters, in Priory the route is my main issue. There are so many annoying packs to play, so how can I make this easier for the party and easier for me? I tell you how you won't, by pulling too much on the first pull. I feel like as a tank, your duty in here is to chain pull small packs onto those mini bosses to make up for the short timer you have. So it's kinda key to know which one you can pull that won't put too much pressure onto the party. This pack, left of the stairs for example, is just one with 3 foot soldiers that don't do anything. Fantastic. And while the pack to the right side of the stairs is a bit more annoying with casters, at least they are movable with kicks. So you can just position yourself in a way that it works out. It's technically just the marksmen that are so annoying. Speaking of which, the other big part about this was to skip the upstairs pack. They mentioned sharpshooters that are just a pain in the ass to play. But it all wasn't fun and rainbows, as I got a mad reality check right after the first boss. Those guys pummeled me raw.
What do you mean by that?
I obviously could have lived that by using Fortified Brew, but boy, I was not expecting this at all. This now marks the first time since doing +10 keys where I just flop over without using anything. Dirtnap main at last. Another oopsie I did during the second boss was to trigger the third explosion while the healer needed to heal up. That extra bit of damage might have killed way too many people. I'm sorry man. Luckily, this was it with the shenanigans, and we were able to time the most worrisome key for your boy also in the first attempt. This now puts us at a pleasant 7 out of 8 count when it comes to the portals. So let's keep the streak rolling. It took me, as a tank, with over 2500 rating, over 35 minutes to be taken into a +10 floodgate. Who said there are no tanks anymore? That's crazy. Now I was a bit worried here, because I was a lot more picky in the beginning of the applications, but eventually just said YOLO and went for whatever party had a pulse. So it's up to me. Play it nice, play it clean, play a proper route for everybody to enjoy, and that's what I tried to do. Now this is the one I was going for. I learned that the first pull like that is a lot more chill to play since you just skip those annoying drones all at once. My key idea here was to always pull 2 or 3 packs together for a solid cooldown usage on everybody's end. Similar to Priory, I feel like the timer in here is also quite tight, so you can't waste time by playing one pack by itself. This was also the time where I started to see some damage numbers at last. That 4-set proc, which got buffed to 250% from 150% on Blackout Kick, also hits 2 additional targets, and let me tell you, that kick can easily go for 2.5 to 4 mil, depending on cooldown usage. Not to mention that Shard Passion always grants another 50% of that damage as fire damage as extra. So that's up to 6 mil on 3 targets. It sounds a lot, but it's also a lot of ifs, so it's not really reliable. Just thought I'd mention it here. Yet after getting through the double boss with 1 casualty, the nightmare of mine was up next. Not only does Swamp Face share the same name with my former mother-in-law, it also looks the same. Unfortunately, it doesn't hit like that wet noodle I had to pretend to like in my earlier life, so I had to be careful here. Sludge Claws beat the lukewarm spit out of your mouth, and so I had to think about rotating my cooldowns around it. Just to quickly find out, I don't have enough. So plan B, 10% damage reduction onto the boss with Blackout Combos Fire Breath, and then use some half-assed Celestial Brew and... Huh? That's nothing! Funny enough, the only time I got slapped quite hard was when I actually used the proper defensive. Weird how that works. But there you go, similar to the other mentioned nightmare, I got over it and now I can rest easy. We also added some extra trash, which was not intentional, which is why I adjusted the route and didn't play those 2 mobs here eventually. Yet final boss again has a nasty Tankbuster. I've seen geared tanks getting slapped hard here because while the Thunder Punch hits you for an absurd amount, it also gives you a dot and he instantly melees you after it too. Probably the only boss where I can rotate all my cooldowns around since it's a magical hit. So I got stuff ready for every Thunder Punch incoming. Well, at least for the first 5. Luckily, 5 was all that energetic midget had in this tank, and so we actually managed to get all 10s done in the first attempt scenario. Granted, besides playing a proper route and not dying on pulls, a tank can't do much to contribute, so I was just mad lucky with my parties and I'm well aware of that. However, before I send you off, I will give you the final vault of the series, stacked with triple myth items and a fat middle finger, courtesy of Blizzard Entertainment. You ready? We got a weapon, which is not too bad, even though it's just a one-hand. We got the Cinder Brew Stein, which I already have on Hero, but it's more than 10% of my healing overall. And we got the Pacemaker. 3 viable and reasonable choices on the final vault where it doesn't really matter anymore. Thanks, Blizzard. Oh yeah, I took the Pacemaker. Hey guys, it's Kusi. Let me welcome you to the unofficial 6th episode of the Brewmaster Zero to Hero, in which I give you the most honest feedback about the spec, my experience, the pros, cons, and if I would recommend it to you. Granted, from the title and thumbnail, you gotta have a pretty solid idea on which direction this is going. Nonetheless, if you would like to see a review type of video for every future Zero to Hero series, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think about Brewmaster if you played it, and if you got the same critiques as I have about it, or if we disagree. So without any further ado, grab a drink, get comfy, and let's talk about the Drunken Keg Smasher. Now, in order to give you guys an idea of what qualifies me to give a feedback about the spec I've only played a couple of weeks, here are the key informations you need to know. I am half horse from the waist down. No, but actually, I do play plenty of classes, and once every blue moon, I decide to take a preferably unknown, at least to me, class and attempt to go for a portal hunt in Mythic Plus, meaning every dungeon on +10 or higher at least.
Okay.
I feel like the dungeons are somewhat designed to be played at +10, so everything beforehand gives you a very wrong idea about anything you do, in my opinion. And that's also what I did with the Brewmaster. If you want to see that series, link down below. Another thing to mention is that I willingly forced myself to view a spec with the eyes of a potential new player, or at least a returning one, so I really dislike overloading my screen with weak auras, being it class specific ones or the overall dungeon weak aura set that I still don't have. If Little Wigs won't tell me, I don't know about it. With that being said, I did play Brew during Legion a little bit, so I had a somewhat of an idea of how to play it, but a lot has changed since then. And talking about the fact that Brewmaster is overall considered the, well, maybe the weakest tank or just the most unpleasant tank, whatever, it's just not the favorite to say the least. So I was keen to figure out why. So first, let me give you an idea of what Brew does and how the main mechanic to prevent damage intake works, as it's probably the one that makes the spec so unique. The Brewmaster specialization of the monk is considered a tank, which is not only the super fun vehicle every boy wants to drive once in his life, it's also the guy who takes the pounding for the parties in every MMORPG, and he likes it.
Naughty.
Instead of just taking damage like your average Zack enjoyer, with the key idea being to prevent the most damage incoming, Monk only functions whenever you actually do take damage.
What?
Let me explain. Monk's always apparent passive called Stagger allows them to only take a partial amount of the damage incoming and instead take the other part as damage over time. Keep that in mind, because I will go over it in more detail just in a moment. Furthermore, Brewmaster's unholy amount of abilities they can use, or should use rather, also sets them apart from a lot of other tanks, as they don't have this clusterfudge of possibilities to their disposal. So their idea is to get the most possible damage incoming via the Stagger mechanic, which allows them to use multiple brews to deal with the damage on their own. We got a brew that simply purifies a certain percentage of the Stagger, meaning whatever they remove, it's completely gone without any questions asked. Another brew that shield you for incoming damage, and then you got some semi-effective self-heal options in Expel Harm as well as Vivify to slightly heal yourself non-stop in order to deal with the ever incoming damage per second due to the mentioned Stagger. Now, that's the core idea of how Brewmaster works. So let me step in and tell you what I think about the Stagger mechanic. It's shit, trash, and way too annoying to play around. Let me explain. It's hella unique, which is probably the main reason why they have it. It's to stand out. The truth is, you heavily rely on the healer, and barely any healer is designed for that kind of damage intake. Taking both chunky hits and continuous damage from your Stagger is probably only managed really good by Resto Druids, as they have a very similar pattern in their healing as you have in your damage intake. A lot of healing over time to pretty much negate your Stagger damage, and some spot healing in case things get wonky. My slightly above casual brain considers this passive an equal to the support utility of augmentation when it comes to the balancing. Stagger is either overtuned or it's garbage. The fact that this only works well whenever you take a decent amount of damage and becomes incredibly useless during most boss encounters makes this a pretty mid type of damage mitigation in my book. Or to be more specific, the idea of that mitigation is nice, but it's the way you're supposed to deal with it, which brings me to the next big no-no I have for Brew. You need weak auras. And when I say need, I mean that. Weak auras are usually player-made interface additions that can tell you everything you need to know about your own character, as well as your party members or about the dungeon that you're currently doing. But that's what they should be. Additions. For Brew, certain weak auras are absolutely mandatory in order to not mess up your defensive utility, as you get punished super hard for overloading your brews or not just using them in the right manner. To give an example, your Celestial Brew, which gives you a big shield that increases with the amount of Stagger you recently purified, has a proper cooldown and shouldn't be wasted. So how do you figure out you should use it now as it grants the most amount of shield?
I don't know, Jeff.
Well, you can't.
You're joking.
At least I didn't find a way. This little weak aura perfectly explains to me how this properly works. For every green Stagger you purify, you get 1 stack. For yellow, you get 2, and 3 for red. And if you got 6, this is the most shield you can get. I had no idea before I had this weak aura at all. Another weak aura that you kinda need, cause again, you living means also your party lives, is the Stagger bar. You do have that thing as a baseline bar under your character frame, but it's a lot smaller than what my ex-girl would describe my willy, so you will never be able to spot that thing in the heat of the moment. Which ironically is also what she told me.
Stop the cap.
Now to a more positive vibe, While I didn't enjoy the fact that you don't play the Brewmaster Celestial Ox Summon thingy since it's underperforming, the hero talents are pretty slick though. Both give decent upgrades to both offensive as well as defensive capabilities, and my personal favorite was Shadowpan. Purely passive, no extra thing to worry about, and just some mad extra pew pew. You have enough buttons to press anyways. Apparently, Master of Harmony does perform better, even more so with the buffed force set, since your Blackout Kick does some sort of AoE with it, but the big downtime is you need another weak aura, as the entire idea of Master of Harmony is once again not really trackable unless you're some insano. Disregarding still two very pleasing ideas of hero talents to complement the brew, I didn't really find that much to complain about it. And since I just mentioned the force set, let's go over the tier real quick. Tank tier sets are all very different compared to the previous seasons, and yet I don't dislike them at all. The whole idea of you proccing your defensive ability randomly when taking damage seemed kinda weird first, but I think the entire idea was to make it slightly easier for lesser experienced players to have a defensive uptime. Because let's be honest, if you ever healed lower keys, you damn sure know that nobody, not even tanks, like to use defensives. The force set also hits quite heavily after the buffs, where I got up to 5 mil blackout kicks on bosses that don't even have increased damage intake. And I do not have a maxed out weapon. That paired with the talents that cleave BOK for 2 extra targets, or the extra cleave from Master of Harmony and the Charred Passion for 50% extra as fire, we are talking about some mad hits here. All in all, good middle ground of a slightly increased defense as well as some situational increased offense, and after all, you get the 15% flat damage increase whenever your 2-set procs. But segueing our way through this video, let's stay with the topic of damage. In the most recent expansion of Dragonflight, Brewmaster was equally as unpopular as it is now, but they were pumping. I'm telling you, they pumped so much that even though they were the least played tank, they still got damage nerfs. Not kidding. Now though, they don't. They have arguably one of the lowest selfie potential, which probably only beats Prot Warrior, if even that. They do in fact the lowest DPS by a mile compared to other tanks, and like we mentioned, their damage intake pattern is also pretty weird and super difficult to read for other healers. It's such a downer that this spec is just one of, if not the worst performing out of all of the tank choices, considering it's one of the more nerdy types of tanks. On that note, it was pretty weird for me to realize that the only people that recommend you to play Brew are people who either were a former rank 1 Brewmaster gamer or some diehard sweats that want to invest the extra hours into weak aura research, min-maxing and top percentage pushing. With that being said, let's go over the actual pros and cons that those rank 1 wanks won't tell you. On the pro side of things, Brewmaster is hella unique. Very mobile, high amount of utility with Tiger's Lust, Ring of Peace, Leg Sweep, Paralysis, which is also a rage dispel, and an actual poison dispel, which comes in handy for both, well, poisons and the seasonal affix. The class fantasy of throwing kegs and downing one brew after the other in order to negate more incoming damage is pretty cool, even though it still feels like a weird little minigame you have to endure while doing all the proper tanking stuff. But they can take Tankbusters like no other due to a pretty good baseline damage reduction. Extra point is that you will almost feel immortal if you have a Resto Druid backing you up, as their healing pattern really smoothly connects with your damage intake pattern. Also, they do have some very solid transmog, not gonna lie. And of course, the 3% damage buff to all physical damage. The con list will be slightly longer because even though I just said the pro is a uniqueness of Brew, it's also a con.
You're joking.
Let me explain. Because of the way Brewmaster works and how super hidden and mechanically in-depth the spec is, no one has any idea what's going on. Not even me. Maybe not even you. Healers are unable to track all of your cooldowns and probably don't even know what they would do if they tracked it. Speaking of, way too many defensive cooldowns. Because the problem is, you need them. You really do. Not only do you play with 4 actual cooldowns, 2 of which are only magic and 2 are your average overall damage mitigation, you also got Exploding Keg, Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew to play around, and even Breath of Fire to keep up, which is also a defensive one. Next on the con list is Blackout Combo. Cool design, way too annoying to keep track. This is also a potential new weak hour angle for you to realize whenever you have it. Also, I've played this for a couple of weeks, and because you only use Blackout Combo for either Breath of Fire for the damage reduction or Tiger Palm for the damage. I don't even know what it does in combination with all the other spells, because I didn't bother to read it up because I wasn't supposed to use it. Besides the free choice of hero talents, I feel like the talent tree of Brew itself is quite mid. If anything, you potentially play only one capstone of your talents, while not even playing the arguably coolest defensive at all. Other than that, you pretty much just play the very same build with potentially one flex point to feel crazy, like that one 40-year-old mom who decided to spice her life up by putting some lemons into the water. Furthermore, way too many weak hours are required. They should be additional to min-max, not a mandatory thing for you to find out on third-party websites. The game just does a bad job giving you the proper information about all the hidden stuff you need to track. If you need to research on YouTube or other guides just to get into the spec, the base of the specialization is not that well designed in my opinion. With that being said, Brew also is everything but a beginner-friendly spec. Way too much to track. Also, wonky damage intake pattern in high pressure situations. Yes, Stagger is supposed to smoothen out a lot of the damage intake, but if you pull big, which you kinda have to do often, and stuff doesn't die fast enough, you're getting mad troubles. Last but not least is something that other tanks probably have too, and that's DPS being tied to defensive buffs. Two specific talents are both Special Delivery, which is a half-assed keg smash whenever you chug a brew that takes about 5 business days to actually do something, and Exploding Keg. I personally thought Exploding Keg would be my go-to opener for the big initial aggro. And you can do that, but it's still tied with a pretty strong damage mitigation, as it reduces the damage of attacks by 100% for 3 seconds. Personally, not a big fan of those kind of spells, but maybe that's just a me issue. All in all, I feel like Brew is just not adjusted to the current game of World of Warcraft. In a timeline where most tanks just heal themselves or at least keep themselves alive, and healers quite frankly are pretty busy healing the rest of the party since there's so much damage incoming these days, a tank that can't provide for themselves for the most part is not only very mediocre, it's also not really well received from the community. Yes, this potentially changed on hierarchy since everything is a lot more coordinated, but the absolute majority of players doesn't go over 10, and that's just the absolute truth. I get that they wanted to make them unique, and I'm all for the class fantasy the way it is. Just the stagger mechanic has to go, since I don't think it's a thing you can balance proper. I heavily believe they need at least some minor rework, similar to Prot Paladins last season, in which they just really overhaul the bottom part of the specialization tree since it's just not used at all. Those talents are dead. So if you want to try out tank but you aren't sure what to choose, I can tell you with the most honest of truth, stay away from Brewmaster. You need to put in at least double the effort for less reward compared to every other tank out there. I hope you liked this kind of review video, and again, let me know if you want to see that for future Zero to Hero projects. And for everybody asking what the new Zero to Hero character will be, I will tell you right now. It's going to be... You know what? I changed my mind.